In the grim darkness of Warhammer 40K's far future, there is only war, and within this endless conflict, few forces epitomize the stark, unyielding brutality of this universe, like the Death Korps of Krieg. This army is the embodiment of sacrifice, duty, and relentless resolve. Born from the ashes of their own nuclear-devastated world, they are the harbingers of the Imperium's iron will, forged in the crucible of self-inflicted apocalypse. The Death Korps of Krieg, warriors of penance, heralds of doom, and the living embodiment of the Imperium's darkest hour. Inhabiting the vast war zones and scattered across the many battlefields of the 41st millennium, the Krieg's special operations teams take things to a whole other level. Let us drop into this nightmare and explore a particular unit of the Corps' many special operations. Welcome to the first PSYOPs platoon of the 2nd Krieg Geist Company. In life, they served without question. In death, they fight without end. The battlefield is a desolate expanse of scorched earth, littered with craters, barbed wire, and the twisted remains of war machines. The air is thick with the acrid scent of burning promethium, the sulfurous stench of spent munitions, and the sickly sweet odor of decay. This is the grim reality of siege warfare, the hallmark of the Death Korps of Krieg. Across the shattered landscape, wave after wave of Krieg infantry surge forward with unyielding determination. These soldiers are conditioned to embrace death as a duty, hurling themselves against enemy fortifications with grim resolve. The death toll is immense. The ground is stained red with the blood of countless fallen soldiers, their bodies heaped in grotesque mounds where they fell. Amidst the carnage, a Krieg psyker, possibly one of a kind, stands on a rise overlooking the battlefield. His eyes glow with an unnatural light, the telltale sign of psychic power coursing through his veins. He surveys the battlefield, the scene of unimaginable slaughter, and knows that this is the perfect setting for his dark ritual. With a whispered incantation, the psyker begins to channel the warp, drawing upon the foul energies that permeate the universe. His voice, a low guttural chant, reverberates across the battlefield, carried by the winds of war. The ground beneath the dead soldiers begins to tremble, as if in response to some unseen force. One by one, the fallen Krieg soldiers rise from the mud and blood. Their eyes glow with a ghostly light, the same unnatural hue that emanates from the psyker. They no longer breathe, no longer speak, but there is a cold, unyielding purpose in their movements. These are no longer men. They are revenants, undead warriors bound to the psyker's will. The sounds of battle are now accompanied by the eerie, unnatural wail of the resurrected, a mournful sound that chills the blood and saps the courage of even the bravest. The enemy soldiers hear things they cannot understand, voices of the dead, the creaking of phantom chains, and the cold, hollow laughter of the damned. In this war of attrition, the Death Korps of Krieg have found a new weapon, the fear of the unknown, the terror of the supernatural.
Psychological warfare has been a hallmark of special operations throughout military history. PSYOPs deployed directly onto the battlefield take on their own particular tactics. One such strategy is to strike fear in an enemy by playing into cultural beliefs around death and the afterlife, and this is not something left only to the world of fiction or theory. Operation Wandering Soul was a psychological warfare campaign conducted by U.S. forces during the Vietnam War, aimed at exploiting local Vietnamese beliefs about the afterlife to demoralize and confuse Viet Cong fighters. The operation was rooted in the Vietnamese cultural belief that if a person dies far from home or under violent circumstances, their soul could become a wandering soul, unable to find peace or rest. According to these beliefs, such souls are doomed to wander the earth in torment unless proper funeral rites are performed. The core strategy involved the use of audio recordings designed to sound like ghostly wails and moans of tormented souls. These recordings featured eerie, distorted voices lamenting their fate, calling out for loved ones, and begging for proper burial rites. Some recordings were made to sound as though the spirits were speaking directly to the living Viet Cong, warning them of the same fate if they continued to fight. These recordings were played through loudspeakers mounted on helicopters, vehicles, or placed in the jungle at night near Viet Cong positions. The disembodied voices echoed through the dark, dense jungle, creating an unsettling and terrifying atmosphere. The goal was to make the Viet Cong believe that the spirits of their fallen comrades were indeed wandering and suffering, a fate they might share if they did not abandon their fight. While the impact and outcome of these psyops were mixed at best, that's really not the point here. The point is really to say that there's a precedent for this kind of wartime tactic, and it certainly is a tactic that wouldn't be out of place in the science fiction universe of Warhammer 40k. Now, in addition to psychological operations being a feature of the story I introduced earlier, another feature that probably jumped out for those of you that are fans of the 40k universe is the presence of an Imperial Guard Psyker in the story. Now, those unfamiliar with Warhammer 40k, a sanctioned Psyker or Imperial Guard Psyker is a human with the ability to tap into the warp, the immaterial dimension of pure psychic energy. These individuals possess potent psychic abilities that can manifest in a variety of ways, such as telekinesis, telepathy, pyrokinesis, and more. Now, I'm not aware of any lore that specifically connects Psykers to the Death Korps of Krieg on the battlefield, and I'm sure the argument could be made that this is a highly unlikely pairing. However, what better way for the soldiers of Krieg to pledge their eternal allegiance to the Emperor, but by continuing to fight beyond death? Stay tuned for a future Kitbash video that will specifically look at the Psyker and the unit that comprises them. This finally brings us to the focus of this Kitbash. And I've decided to jump Warhammer universes to find my inspiration for these undead Krieg soldiers. We're going to be looking at the Age of Sigmar in its mortal realms, and deep dive into the realm of Shyish to discover the Nighthaunt. Now, the Nighthaunt are not just random spirits. They are the souls of the damned, cursed by the god Nagash to an eternity of torment. Unlike other undead, the Nighthaunt are incorporeal, meaning they are not bound by the physical limitations of the world. They can pass through walls, weapons often pass through them without effect, and they are immune to many conventional means of attack. Their very presence brings a chill that can freeze the hearts of the living. In battles, the Nighthaunt strike fear into their enemies, demoralizing them before overwhelming them with waves of ghostly apparitions. Their presence turns battlefields into nightmares where even the bravest warriors can feel their courage drained away by the icy touch of the afterlife. The Nighthaunt epitomizes the very nature of psychological warfare. The Nighthaunt often strike from the shadows, emerging suddenly to ambush their prey. Their ability to phase through solid objects means they can appear in the heart of enemy lines without warning. This unpredictability, combined with their eerie silence, can cause panic and disarray among enemy troops. They also employ spectral wails and haunting cries that can sap the courage of those who hear them. I'm guessing You are starting to see how the Death Korps of Krieg and the Nighthaunt share a deep thematic connection, rooted in death, sacrifice, and an unwavering sense of duty or torment. Both factions are relentless and grim in their approach to warfare, emphasizing faceless soldiers who fight without hesitation, guided by leaders that enforce ironclad control over their troops. Their aesthetics, rooted in darkness and death, make them haunting representations of their respective universes' most terrifying qualities. Whether living or dead, Krieg or Nighthaunt, these soldiers exist to remind the enemy that death is inevitable and unstoppable. So let's take a look at this PsyOps platoon of the Krieg Geist Company up close. The members of the PsyOps platoon are an eerie fusion of the living and the dead. Their bodies are partially incorporeal, flickering between the physical world and the warp. Their uniforms, once standard issue, now hang tattered and ghostly, appearing as though they've been worn thin by the passage of time and exposure to the psychic energies that animate them. I have used the Nighthaunt Craventhrone Guard as the bodies for these soldiers. Their crossbows have been replaced with Imperial Guard lasguns, and I've added Krieg backpacks and third-party helmeted skulls. I also had to build up a layer of clothing on the front of the figures using green stuff, as these Nighthaunt models came completely open in the front. In addition to the standard uniform colors of my Krieg army, I've painted their skin in a pale, cold, ghostly blue-white, and really like how the gaunt and lanky arms of the Nighthaunt figures emphasize this grotesque form. Using their psychic connection to the warp, they can project terrifying visions into the minds of their foes, illusions of their worst nightmares, twisted memories of lost comrades, or even glimpses of the horrors that await them in the afterlife. The PsyOps specialists can also manipulate the ambient sounds on the battlefield, making the enemy hear the ghostly whispers of the dead, the wails of the damned, or the inexorable march of spectral soldiers that seem to come from all directions. My sergeants direct the platoon's movements and tactics. These sergeants are often the most feared and respected among the undead ranks, former leaders in life who now serve in death. Their presence on the battlefield is marked by an even more intense aura of fear, and their commands are followed without question by the spectral soldiers. These are my two sergeants. One has been taken from the Craventhrone Guard kit as the flag bearer, and the other is the Guardian of Souls model from the Ethereal Court kit. The sergeant with the loudspeakers draws heavily on my reference to Operation Wandering Soul and is responsible for using sound to strike fear into the enemy. The sergeant with the Nightmare Lantern, as it's known in the Nighthaunt lore, is used to create hallucinatory images in the fog, confusing and disorienting the enemy. Leading the Krieg Geist Company is an undead commissar, often referred to as the Warden of the Damned. This horse-mounted apparition is responsible for leading the undead soldiers to eternal battle and is under the control of the Krieg Geist Company Psyker. As with all the figures, the commissar is based on a bloody pile of corpses. I imagine these Krieg Geists rise where they had fallen, so they will likely be found in the most corpse-laden parts of the battlefield, with the most dead. I created a mold out of blue stuff using the Grimguard, the Fallen, Models kit by Station Forge and filled it with milliput. This was then broken into pieces and applied across all of the bases. So this is the PsyOps platoon of the Krieg Geist Company, and it's not just a unit of soldiers. They are a weaponized force of fear and terror, blending the relentless determination of the Death Korps of Krieg with the supernatural horror of the Nighthaunt. Their presence on the battlefield signals not just a fight for territory, but a psychological assault that leaves their enemies broken, demoralized, and haunted by the specters of Krieg long after the battle is over. So there's my first special operations unit within my Death Korps of Krieg army, the Psychological Ops platoon within the Krieg Geist Company. Feel free to click here if you want to see how my army is adapting the world of Maschinen Krieger in the form of a Kuster Sentinel. And stay tuned for a kitbash on the Krieg Geist Psyker and retinue coming soon. What kitbash crossovers have you considered between Warhammer 40k and Warhammer Age of Sigmar? How can the lore of a different army help to deepen and differentiate the lore of your own army? As always, if you want to go on your own journey of discovering these universes and models, I have included links to inspirational content related to this kitbash in the description below. And thanks for watching.